And so I'm now divorced. I've gotten finally 3 years after being drugged through so many court battles. I'm divorced. I'm never going to date again. I'm like, oh my God, I hate men.
Done.
I can never trust another soul.
You tell God, I will never.
Yes, I will never do it. I will not. Well, after like a year or so, I'm like, well, maybe I'll just. So, it's all dating online. And so I'm like, oh Lord, what in the world?
Hi, I'm Angela Williams.
And I'm Katie Sudano.
And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
Welcome
to Voice Up for the Voiceless.
We're so glad that you've joined us today, and we had such a great segment with Melissa and John Rymer that we've decided to add a part 2. I think we all know a narcissist in our life. We all have been abused, been gaslit, we've learned some from our part 1 from our show. We learned some vocabulary that maybe we didn't know before. So we're really excited to continue this conversation. So we thank you for joining us. We ask that you would like and share this podcast and help us to keep growing. Our podcast revolves around the issue of child sexual abuse, and all abusers, pedophiles, are narcissistic in their actions and in their abuse. So this is very confirming, I think, and also great information for us to continue on our healing journey. Right, Katie?
Absolutely, and welcome back. We're so excited to continue this talk. We actually didn't intend on doing a part 1 and part 2, but as we were speaking and learning, there's just so many questions I have, because I think that the narcissistic topic in general is not spoken about, and we do need a voice up on this issue, and to be able to recognize the narcissism within the predators and pedophiles that not only attack children but attack adults.
We were sitting at the table and we're continuing the conversation. It's like we really need the cameras running. But I think also, and I know in my own life, and we all have very felt selfish sometimes tendencies, and
for sure,
as a Christ follower, he teaches us to be very selfless. So I think too, when we are survivors of abuse and we have unresolved trauma in our life, that also kind of opens us up to maybe some of these narcissistic behaviors. So even to recognize it kind of in our own lives,
absolutely,
that manipulative behavior that could be borderline. So I think the conversation is great, is also sort of a self-reflection of our own lives, to look and see if there's areas that, because I certainly don't want to.
Well, but I think there's a difference between being needy and being narcissistic, though.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, because survivors, we do need a lot at the beginning, especially when we're going through our healing, don't you think? I mean, we are selfish in a way. I call it selfish with a capital S.
Well, you want someone else to fill the
void and stuff. But on that note, I think that's why we attract these narcissists in our lives, because we are trying to fill a void, and they're telling us everything we want to hear.
So in this conversation that we're having, I think too, to recognize, to be able to know if we're in an unhealthy relationship, because that we certainly can't heal in those types of relationships. So we have welcomed back Melissa and John, and Melissa's going to unpack for us a little bit about some of the work that she does with survivors that have been in narcissistic relationships, and John is going to help also. That is their passion, is to help in the healing and recovery
and also
escape.
Before we start, I just want to tell everyone that Melissa and John have been so gracious. They're going to give you a really, really important, great gift. It's a free gift. At the end of this show, I will give you a discount code so that you can receive this. Well, it's a discount code, but it's a free code. So stay till the end, and I'll make sure and give that to you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, very helpful.
So thank you for that.
Let's dive back in, Melissa.
Okay.
We were in a great conversation. We've learned about both of you having horrible relationships with the narcissist that was very abusive, very destructive in your life, and kind of how you both escaped. But for the work that you do now, let's really talk about how the steps that you take to help people heal.
Okay, we will. We have a program to help people get out if they want to leave. That's the most difficult part, but it's called the 12 critical steps to take before you leave, because you're not really thinking clearly, and you have to have a plan, a safety action plan, in order to leave safely. And then once you are out, it's so much easier to start your healing journey, because getting out of the relationship is the hardest. Once you're out, the first step that we talked about in the previous video is blocking your abuser. It is almost impossible for people to actually block this person, even though this person is the cause of all their pain, all their anguish, all their destruction in their life. But blocking the person, if you do not do that, you will not go to your next step in recovery. It's impossible, because you basically left the cancer in your life, and you can't heal if that is still there. So when we tell people to block their abuser, we mean that person has to be locked in a vault, thrown over the side of a boat into the ocean, and the key needs to be thrown on the other side. You cannot release them. You can't. They are basically dead to you. Even if you're co-parenting with a narcissist, there are ways to co-parent through a third-party app where you do not have to have this emotional interaction with your abuser. So blocking them basically allows you to think to the next step. When you don't, your mind always goes back to what are they doing, who are they with, what is their social media. You can't think about recovery if you are still connected to what is going on with your abuser. And so that is literally the hardest step for victims to take, is actually doing that step.
And I can imagine, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, when we have clients that are victims that are struggling with the recovery, we always ask them, have you gone no contact? And 9 times out of 10, they have not. They're still watching their social media. What are they doing? Who are they dating? Where are they working?
What if an emergency happens? I'm like, why is any of this your business?
They're still connected some way. I have a male client that's a very strong man, and he's still connected to this abuser.
Who almost had him arrested.
Who almost had to go to prison because of her.
Yeah.
But he won't go no contact, and she calls him whenever she needs something. He's right over there.
Why do you think that is?
People think they're going to change,
Yep.
because once you do have enough nerve to leave, the narcissist, if they weren't ready to discard you, then you now become a challenge to them. You're basically, you left them, how dare you, and they're going to do anything and everything to hoover you back. That is part of it. And you're so vulnerable at that point in time. If you don't block them, you will believe their lies. You will, because they'll say things to you.
You want to believe their
that
lies.
you were so upset about before. You didn't go to counseling. You wouldn't take me to the hospital when I was sick. All of these things that were the reason you finally left, they will suddenly go, you know what, you're right, we should go to counseling. Let's do it. Let's go to counseling. I was in a bad way. I should never have done that to you. It'll be different this time. Just give me another chance. The victim who is in the worst possible space right now, if they don't block them, that is like a melody to their ears. They're like, you know what, maybe they do mean it. They sounded so sincere. That's why people go back at least 7 times on average.
Do they ever change?
No, never.
No,
They never
incapable.
change.
They never.
Incapable.
They never change.
Is that why predators and pedophiles will never change?
Yeah.
No.
They don't
Is it
have a
that?
conscience. They don't feel empathy or sympathy. They can't feel any real emotion. I call them vampires because they will suck the life out of you. It's the only way they have any life.
How do they become that way, though? It
It could be genetics or it could be environmental. That's what statistics
environmental
show.
meaning.
Their home life.
Yeah. Your stories are very, very similar because you grew up with it in your homes.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to know a real relationship and what people are supposed to be like in a home life because they don't know it. That's all they know. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how they continue with their life.
So it's just perpetuated
Yes,
unless you
And they can
finally
either become the narcissist or become the victim of another narcissist or abuser.
Wow,
And
I
that's certainly
feel
what we
blessed
want to
even
stop.
more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So in the blocking them is the first step. What's another step that you encourage them to take?
Go ahead.
Kind of take a couple of these. You can tell I just love this. Then we want to heal ourselves. We want to heal ourselves mentally first. And so we always recommend prayer, meditation, journaling is a huge step as far as healing, because you want to get these thoughts and these things out of your brain and onto paper, where you can put them down so that when you do think you're going to go back or you do have contact with them again, you can go back to your truth, your journal, and say, okay, these things actually happened. I can't believe I was going to forgive him, or I was going to forgive her, or go back to her. But when it's in your journal, it's there, it's truth.
And your brain has recognized it because you've written it down. And people say, why would I want to relive that? I said, you need to relive it. Because if you don't relive it, you will forget, you will be gaslit, you'll believe the lies. But like John said, these are your words. Right. So when you go back and read the horrific things they did to you, this is your life if you go back. Or worse.
And your brain ruminates too if you don't put it on paper.
Right.
It's going and going, and then you think, and then you don't think.
It's a way to get it, purge it out of your system. But also as humans, our bodies forget pain, physical pain, emotional pain. It's just what makes us human.
Hence 5 children.
We wouldn't have another. Exactly. You wouldn't have another one. So by putting it on paper helps you to remember in your weak points.
Yeah.
Okay. So journaling is so important to recovery. Okay. Then as we're healing ourselves mentally, we want to recover physically, because our abusers take away a lot of things from us, and physical activity, hobbies, things that we like to do to help ourselves physically, we kind of go to the wayside. So we have to get those back. We have to start with physical activity every single day, whether it's just walking or getting outside, doing some hiking, doing something to get ourselves going again physically.
Oh, that's hot. That's tough, because I know from my own experience, I just wanted to isolate.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And we have this thing called a daily tracker, and we can actually provide that as well. It lets people take away that overwhelming feeling of, what do I do? How do I get through today? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It lets them, it's like, this is what you do in the morning for 5 minutes. This is what you do after that. It walks you through every single step you should take, and it has blanks for you to write other things in. But sometimes it takes those steps, and that's why we're so guided with our program, is we don't just hand somebody something and say, hey, read this, and you're going to be... You have to drag that person with you. And that's what we say. We're not going to let go of your hand. You're not going to walk this trail by yourself.
No, I love that.
Regardless if you want us here or not, we are going to be here.
We're invested now.
Yes.
Right.
And the daily tracker actually gives them something to read and do. And I said, just do one thing on the list, and that is a win.
Yeah.
And so how long is your program?
The actual program itself is 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks for what we call full transformation. And that's if you come to the sessions, you do the action steps we've given you, we talk through some things. Sometimes it could be longer. I do have clients that, they're into 12 months now, but they're divorced. They're worried about, how do I manage my money? I'm like, that is a good problem to have. Yeah. At least you have money now.
So, and you're an expert at that.
Yeah,
exactly. So it kind of follows along.
Yeah.
And we do have a financial series as well to help people that have been manipulated and abused financially.
And they've never been able to have any money.
But 2 other really important steps that I just love, a support group.
Yes.
It's important to be around people that understand what you're going through. It's huge. You can't heal alone. You have to heal. And that's why we always say true life happens in groups, in circles. And so joining a support group, and that's why we've created our own private Facebook group that's totally anonymous, where you can get 24/7 support. And
we have people from all over the world in that group.
Right.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then lastly, and we love this one because I love this story, is just finding your passion again. Yeah. Because when you're being abused, you don't have passion in your life anymore. The thing that used to make you happy, or the things that used to make you happy, don't anymore, because you don't have time. You're being abused, you're being victimized, you don't have the opportunity to be passionate about something. So, Melissa, you want to talk a little bit about your story?
Because the narcissist will drain your life away, basically. That's why I call them vampires. And there's no time for you in a narcissistic relationship. You are literally the character in their book, their life. You just got plucked out of where you are and placed right into this nightmare of a story. So it becomes too much of an effort to actually do things that you want to do, like reading. He was jealous of my Kindle. It got to the point where I couldn't even read anymore. I'm a passionate reader. And I used to paint. I painted for years, but I would just try to lock myself away for an hour, and he was beating on the door. He was complaining about something. I didn't do something. We needed to do something. And he would disrupt me, and I could not concentrate on what I was doing. So I just packed him up. I gave it up, and I had done it for years and years. So during COVID, we were all trapped at home. I was cleaning out the basement because, I didn't know what to do with myself. And so I found the box of all my old art supplies. And my paints were rusted, dried up. But I'm like, oh my goodness. So I was down there for hours. I don't even know where you were, but you weren't. You must have been at the gym. John can go to the gym for hours. So I was down there.
Passion.
That's his passion. And so I painted these pink tulips. It reminded me of my grandmother. And so I brought it upstairs when he got home, and I had it on the counter. He goes, "Oh, that's beautiful. Where'd you buy that?" I said, "Well, I painted it." And he goes, "Paint by numbers?" I went, "No, paint by my own hand."
That good.
He could not believe it. He goes, "When did you learn how to paint?" I said, when I was like 8, and I had given it up for so many years, and now my art studio is ridiculous. It's got
that's exciting.
But it was my passion.
To uncover her passion
again,
and now it's amazing because she'll go down into her studio and be gone for half a day.
Yeah.
She just gets, and it's
lost in it.
But it's something that she gave up and totally forgot about. But it was such an important part of her life, and she's so talented. And there's so many folks out there that have a talent that they have gotten away from.
They played an instrument.
Yeah, or danced or sung or hiking or whatever, but they unfortunately had to give it up.
Yeah.
Yes. And so now that's one of our steps too, is rekindle that passion.
Yeah.
Go back and find out what did I really love doing that I don't do anymore.
Yeah. Well, I have a burning question.
What's that?
Because so many of our listeners may be divorced or out of a narcissistic relationship. I want to know how you guys met. Very much in love, very passionate.
Yeah. Oh, it's actually a pretty funny story.
I'd love to know.
I have a gentleman who worked for me for 25 years. Just like a family member in the finance industry. And John went to college with him, but they lost connection. Years and years had never connected. And so I'm now divorced. I've gotten finally 3 years after being drugged through so many court battles. I'm divorced. I'm never going to date again. I'm like, oh my God, I hate men.
Yeah, done.
I can never trust another soul.
You tell God, I will never.
Yes, I will never do it. I will not. Well, after like a year or so, I'm like, well, maybe I'll just. So, it's all dating online. And so I'm like, oh Lord, what in the world? And so I, ended up going on quite a few first dates because I would, all of a sudden I'm looking for red flags. I'm like, I know, I think that's a red flag. So then the person would be like, you want to go out again? I'm like, no, I don't want to go out again. And so my friend, I was on a date. And my friend texts me, I'm in the bathroom, he goes, I know you're on a date, I know you're not going to go out with the guy again, I don't know who he is, but you only go on first dates. And he said, I have run into a friend of mine from college, and I really think you two would get along. I'm here with some of my buddies, and he said, why don't you join us at this restaurant in Avalon? And I said, okay, I'm going to get out of this date. So I went in there, I paid my share, and I drove over to the bar. And my friend, was hollering at me from across the room. And he comes in with 5 guys, all really good-looking guys. And I'm like, wow, which one? I'm like, I know he would never introduce me to someone that was, a criminal or something. And so John's best friend is who came up to me, and he was a really good-looking guy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's so good-looking and everything. So we're talking. All of a sudden, John comes up from behind him, gets him by his shoulders, and moves him out of the way, and then just comes right up in my grill, literally. And that was it. I mean, we spent the whole night talking to each other. And when I say from that night forward, it's been 10 years, it was that night forward. And we had both been single forever, and that was it.
Yeah. So how did you navigate? How did you navigate the trust issue? Or were you pretty much healed from it?
Well, we were both. I was more. I was further along in my healing process, and it really, I was never going to get married ever again. I just didn't want to do that. But you start looking at things differently when you start dating again. Once you've healed.
Yeah.
Now that's important
And once you
because
know
if
how
you
to
haven't
recognize
healed
red
yet,
flags.
then you're looking for people to fill gaps for you and
Yeah.
holes for you. So you want to heal fully before you move into that
And be
relationship.
comfortable being alone.
Right.
Be comfortable with your own.
I love Melissa's example. They're like, well, how did you know John didn't have those types of traits? And she was, believe me, she was looking. But the time, one of our first dates was Mother's Day, where I took her to meet my mom. And she just watched the way I interacted with my mom and the things that I did. And she's like, you know what?
Because my ex was horrible to his mother. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
treated her so badly, and it was embarrassing to me. I felt so awkward because she was a really nice person, but he was so awful to her, and she was very smart. So it was like he just tore her down, and I'm like, and my family was so close, you know?
So sad.
Yeah, so I really was staring at how he was going to treat his mother. I
You're
did.
like taking notes.
Seriously.
So when you're healed and you're stronger, I think you can recognize red flags. You do recognize red flags much better than you would if you were still if you hadn't recovered yet.
Yeah.
But just to clarify too, though, like, sorry to interrupt,
That's okay.
but like, not everyone's perfect. You're not
Sure.
going
No.
to find
No.
perfection.
No.
There's
No.
a difference
Right.
between being perfect
Yes.
and seeing red flags. It's
Yeah.
not that they smack their teeth or,
Right.
it's not that.
Yes.
It's like you said, it's
Yeah.
how they're treating other people.
Right.
Are
Yeah.
you verifying? Like,
Right.
did
Oh,
he
we have
tell
a-
his mom something different than what he told you?
Right.
You know, like that.
Well,
those are
we
the
also,
red flags.
because so many people meet online now,
Yeah.
Melissa and I were so fortunate that a mutual friend knew us both and said, you guys would be great. So that's an awesome way to meet somebody. If
I was
you can.
vetting, you know?
But if you meet someone online, we always recommend Truth Finder.
Yeah.
And-
We're actually
which-
a rep for them.
What's
Right.
Truth Finder?
Truth Finder is an anonymous third-party background checking company.
Oh, okay.
wow.
So
Yes.
if Melissa had known about Truth Finder, it would have saved her hundreds of thousands of dollars and years of her life.
I found out about it during my divorce. And what I found out is he had quitclaimed my house into his own name.
Oh my goodness.
Forged my name.
So
Yeah.
Truth Finder is a website that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
recommend?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a background checking company, completely anonymous, but it will pick up criminal records, arrest, DUIs, any public record, collections, bankruptcies, all of these things that show poor character.
We'll have to put that link in.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
we'll
it
give you
is.
we'll give you
You
that
would be
link
surprised
because
how many people we've given it to
your
who are ready
audience,
to date.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your
Okay.
audience can also get a
Yeah.
discount by using our link
Yeah.
for it because
Okay.
it is a small fee, but it uncovers
$23.
all sorts of things that you want to know about but won't be told.
Right.
Especially if you meet somebody online.
Yeah.
Now, but also it can show you this person, everything they said is true. Yes, they were divorced. They're all these public records are.
They're not a sex offender.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
all of this
these
stuff
things.
comes
That's
up.
a huge thing.
That's
Yeah.
Sounds like
awesome.
it will save you a lot of pain
Oh
and
my
money
gosh.
in the
Absolutely.
long run.
And
Because
it
you
can
can make a
also-
decision right then because you're
then.
not invested in the
Right.
relationship. So you can make an educated decision that this person is not someone you want to go to the next level with.
Yeah, it's so
And
sad.
conversely, it can make you feel like, you know what? Everything they said is true.
Yeah. So
So let's move
Take
on
the
and
next
have
step.
another.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, since most of our audience, and I wouldn't say all of our audience, but most of our audience are probably survivors of child sexual abuse, what percentage of the clients that you coach have that in their past?
a lot of them. I would say probably 60%.
Wow.
And it comes out maybe not in our first session, but when we start actually digging into how they met their narcissist, because they're always worried about, why didn't I recognize this? Why didn't I see it? Why did they choose me? It comes out, that they were abused, they were molested by people they trusted, and people that they thought would save them ignored it.
And did you find that maybe that trauma has not been healed?
I do, because they don't have that same self-esteem as somebody that hasn't been through that. So there's that deep wound that just is festering. It's very difficult to heal that. And so because they're vulnerable, a narcissist or another abuser can target in on that and actually start becoming their hero and their savior, which is what they want. It's actually very evil. That's the word for it, is evil.
You're
And
right.
If I can
it's
just say
evil.
one thing about Melissa too, and why she's so good. There's a lot of good therapists out there. There are. I mean, and they have degrees and all of these things, but Melissa is a survivor, and there's so many of her clients that said, you know what, I worked with a therapist for so long, but they just didn't understand what I was going through.
They don't get
and
it.
it's hard to really understand and give somebody good advice if you've never experienced it yourself. Now, that doesn't mean it can't happen, but when you have someone like Melissa that went through such abuse and survived it and recovered and now is thriving on the other side,
It gives people hope.
it really does. And so, but she also, it's so funny, so many of her clients want to be her friend or are her friend at this point because they're like,
Yeah, sure,
no
get
one
connected.
no one
I don't
gets
know
me
where
the
the
way you
line
do.
is.
So many people, she has people that send her pictures all the time and just are so grateful for what she has done for them because she
that's
understands them at a different level than just a therapist that they've been going to or someone that they were recommended to that really doesn't understand that type of trauma that they've been through, the abuse. And so I just sorry everybody, I just wanted to take that
that's
second.
so good.
They
we
finally
need
realize
that.
they're not
Yeah.
the crazy one.
Survivors need that
Yeah.
security and knowing that you know what they went through
Yeah.
and that you get them because I can't tell you how many times in my life people are like, yeah, get over it. Or let it
or
go.
a therapist will
If I
say,
hear let it go one more time,
Yeah.
I'll
Right,
let
right.
it go. Trust me, I
Yeah,
want to let it
on
go.
them.
I don't know how.
Yeah. And
Well,
that's
the other
it,
thing is
not knowing
too,
how.
therapists try to figure out what's wrong with you.
For it
where
to have
in-
happened to you.
Yeah, where
rather
in an
than-
abusive situation, you were the victim.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't you, it was them.
Yeah.
And so it's then you need to figure out how to heal and
Right.
unpack
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
And if someone hasn't been through that before, how do they really coach someone on how to get through it or get over it, like you
Yeah,
said?
for sure.
It's almost
And even the court system will, the abusers are so convincing. They convinced us. We bought into their lies. They will lie to the court, and then the victim is trying to defend themselves from the smear campaign and the lies. And they could lose their kids over it. They could lose
Jobs.
jobs, assets. So giving them a voice. I have done so much legal research all over the world just because it's like, no, that is not true. You do have rights. Don't believe your narc's lies. We have a whole series on don't believe your narc's lies. And it's about going through a divorce and child support and alimony.
Sounds like you guys just are a wealth of resource for our listeners, and we're just so excited to have you guys. Can you let us know where we can find you online?
Yeah.
In your socials.
Our handle is Victim to Warrior, or V2W. You can find us either way. But if you go to our website, which is www.thev2w.com, in our navigation, there's personalized support. And if they click that, they can actually book a session with myself or John, where we can actually there's an intake form where they can put their thoughts down so I can know what is
What
bothering
direction,
them.
yeah.
Yes.
What
and
direction
so,
to take them,
yeah,
yeah.
so when we're in our first session, we can dive into, let's figure out what the next step is for you.
Right.
Because it's almost like they've gotten it out on that intake form. So the things that I've read on the intake forms are pretty amazing, but it lets me do a lot of research even before our first call.
Right.
So they
That's good.
have hope when the call is over.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any other questions?
Oh, hello. So many. Part 3. No. I you know what? It's again, I'm just honored to have overheard your conversation in Spanish and there's just so much that goes into healing and I just really appreciate what you're doing because it is a minefield.
Yeah.
You thought I was
Yeah.
going to say the word.
Yeah.
I call it, little unraveling of the mind.
It is.
Yeah, because there's so many layers and
Yeah.
depths of different types of hurt,
Yep.
different types of trauma, and it's just.
And the
it's
longer you're in the
lifelong.
relationship, the longer it
deeper
does a
it is,
number on
right?
your brain.
Yeah.
And so reprogramming your brain
Yeah.
is like trying to reverse things, but it can be done.
Well,
Yeah.
Voice Up is all about giving voice to these tough subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is our heart that a survivor of child sexual abuse has already gone through such
gosh.
Yeah.
horrific abuse in their lives. So if we can do anything to prevent them from being re-abused or re-offended
Yes.
in their future, or to recognize, hey, I may not be in a healthy relationship, and give them such a wonderful resource.
Yeah,
to be able to
absolutely.
That's why we've created so many resources, because in a victimization journey, I hate to use the word journey, but that's basically what it is. You have what we call journey buckets. You're in different places in your journey. And so a recovery resource might not be the right resource for someone that's still in the relationship.
Right.
We need to teach them how to get out of the relationship healthily and safely. And then once they've done that, then they can move on to something else. So it's really like we call them journey buckets, and that's why we kind of try to help people no matter where they are in this journey.
I've had a lot of buckets.
Well, we all have, right? And so that's why it's so hard to say, well, this resource is one size fits all. It's not.
I love that about you guys.
It sounds like you really customize.
We try to
meet the needs.
Yeah.
And I love that you have resources for both men and women.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure a man would rather speak to you and connect with you. Not that you probably don't have clients that are men, but it's nice to have that resource. And it's nice that you get to do this together.
That's amazing.
It is. Yep.
So what is your dream for kind of next steps for warrior to victim to warrior?
Well, what we are creating now is what we call our transformation journey, and it is an intensive journey to get someone through it in like 30 days. And we're not trying to rush someone's healing, but it consists of like 2-hour one-on-ones each week. The steps, the 10 steps to take for recovery, we go into those in depth. And we basically hold people's hand through it, because sometimes people think, well, if I just do this, I can get over it. It's a very, very precise steps to take in order to get from what we call a reactive victim to a proactive warrior. And that's what they'll be at the end.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
good.
It sounds like there might be a book in your future too.
I was going to mention that too. There's an amazing book, but we're also talking with a production company about
like a docuseries.
Doing something with this, because narcissism is such a it's a massive problem. It's a global problem. And that's why I tell people all the time, you've got to give yourself a break, because it's people all over the globe are dealing with this.
Yeah.
So you have to say, you know what, I forgive myself, because a lot of other people have been dealing with the same thing. And that's one of the hardest things to do, is to forgive and let yourself have that forgiveness for the mistakes you made in the past. Not mistakes you made, but for falling for the red flags. That was the hardest thing for me. I guess that's why I'm struggling with this right now. It's because that was the hardest thing for me, was to forgive myself. I'm like, look, I'm a smart guy. How did I fall for all these things? And so there's a lot of people that feel the same way. But
and also the perpetuation of the narcissism and abuse, dealing with kids and sexual abuse and sex trafficking, that all goes along with it. I mean, it's got to end. It's like just when you think, okay, we can do this to stop it, but wait, we have to deal with the narcissists that are perpetuating this thing.
Right.
So that's why we're trying to get the word out as much as we can. We do live events once a week on our social media channels. In fact, we'll do one tomorrow night on Instagram.
Live Q&As.
Yeah, live Q&As.
And
And also, Melissa, we're going to get her to write that book eventually when we have the time.
From my journals.
And hopefully have something
books of them
involved with TV where we can really help victims by really educating them and helping them understand.
And our outreach, go as far as it needs to go.
That's wonderful. Yeah. We're so glad you're on. Okay. Your information was invaluable to our listeners, to me, us, I'm sure. And I just want to say thank you so much for the gift that you're going to give.
Yes, let's do that for sure.
Why don't you describe what the gift is first?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and say it.
This is a book, an ebook that John and I wrote, and it's called the Narcissistic Abuse and Recovery Survival Kit.
Yes.
And it will walk people through, step by step what to do, an abbreviated version of what we're talking about, so they have an idea of what that journey looks like and steps they can take to get to the next journey. And of course, all of our resources
and
are
inside
in there as well.
That book, there'll be a link to our support group.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
So
private.
they can go to our private support group.
Yep.
Just answer a
We
couple
have
of
almost
questions
2,000
because
people
we
in
do
there.
vet, and be involved with our support group too, because it's really, really powerful to be in that.
What a wonderful wonderful gift. Katie, can you
Absolutely.
share how they're
Thank
gonna
you.
get that
Yes. So I will provide a link and in the description below. And in that link, just put all caps, all together, voice up.
Right.
And you will receive that amazing free gift that is invaluable and hopefully will help you on the beginning of your recovery.
Yep.
And so every show we end with a voice of inspiration. I know in part 1 you shared a great one. Can you just share with us what you think our listeners need to hear right now after we've unpacked a lot?
Well, I'm going to go first.
You go
this
first.
time.
He's going to steal the thunder. You go ahead.
You can recover from this. It is possible to recover. You just have to know how to do it. And instead of taking years to recover from the abuse that you've suffered, if you learn the steps to take every single day, you can compress that time and recover quicker and get your life back. And we would love to help you with that.
Amen.
Yeah,
All right, Melissa,
absolutely. Well, of course, he stole mine. No, and just like he said, our goal is to get victims from where they are, no matter where they are on their journey, to where they want to go, and so they can envision a life, a dream life, a life of happiness. Maybe meeting the right partner and sharing your life with someone that's loving and caring and trustworthy, and worthy of you and your love. You deserve it.
That's a great
that's
message.
beautiful.
Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for having us.
Thank you guys for having
such
us.
a pleasure.
Thank Mesmerize Media for making this podcast possible. We thank you for listening and for sharing and for helping us grow our subscription.
Yes, thank you. And as always, please like, share, click on the little bell if you're watching us on YouTube, and please make sure and comment. Let us know what you think if you have any questions. And if you have any questions or comments for Melissa or John, I will make sure that they get them and that they answer themselves so that you get the right information.
So I'm Angela Williams.
And I'm Katie Sudano.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank
Voice
you.
Up for the Voiceless.